There are many wrongs in the Forgotten Realms, especially when it comes to the Drow, whether it's lording over unwilling folks, leading evil hordes of goblins in the name of an alien god who's infected tons of innocents with parasites, including our champion, or just being kinda rude.
Creature.
But that's where our half-drow hero steps in. She'll use her wizardly ways to conjure spells against oppressors, her sword skills to slaughter slavers, and her penchant for perfection to undo all the many evils her people have committed. All, of course, while fighting against the rising Mind Flayer threat. Can it be done? Well, we've got one way to find out. But first, the rules. No other party members, though temporary companions such as summons are a-okay. No respecking, no multiclassing, no illithid powers, no karmic dice, no barrelmancy or chessmancy, no saving in the middle of combat, and we're playing with the honor mode rule set, so we'll be keeping it that way. With all that said, let's move on to character creation. Starting off, our spiffy spellcaster is a half-elf drow, giving us some good dark vision, fey ancestry for sleep immunity, and the ability to conjure up a pretty light show. Since she's been studying hard for ages to gain the power to make things right, our champion is of course a wizard, starting with Ray of Frost, Booming Blade, and Minor Illusion for our cantrips. Because wizards can learn spells through scrolls, it's not too important what we take, but we end up landing on these for a nice mix of defense, utility, and offense to start our journey. Naturally, our background of choice is Sage, and we need to get our stats and proficiencies looking nice and clean, mainly prioritizing dexterity since we'll need it if we want to show off our skills with a blade, and of course intelligence and constitution as secondary focuses. And to finish things off, we make our whip-smart wizard look perfect and give her a name to match. So begins the journeys of Aria Elemunzi. Journeys which start right after she wakes with a parasite in her mind on a burning illithid nautiloid, and also somehow in literal hell. Terrifying conditions or not, our cool-headed heroes got a plan, and it starts with us reaching the helm. Along the way, we even find an exposed brain that we're able to surgically remove with our impressive medical knowledge. Turns out it's an intellect devourer named Us that couldn't agree more with our plan, and if a literal brain thinks it's good, then it must be. Unfortunately, sometimes a wrench gets thrown into your plans, and sometimes it's a steel-clad Githyanki who tries to murder you before a whole bunch of imps decide to force you into briefly teaming up. Our brief ally clearly isn't as graceful as our hero though, since she slips and falls away, never to be seen again. Thankfully, our combined remaining forces are overwhelming with 4 damage crits and whopping claws to boot. Soon enough, we find ourselves at the helm, and well, Aria's face kinda says it all. We planned for this too though, with some pre-dashing right before the fight and some dashing once we're in it. We're able to easily zip on all the way over to the control tentacles lickety-split. For a lady like us, alien vehicles are a cinch to pilot, teleporting us right back into the material plane, though it's a bit trickier to land, resulting in us plummeting right down to the beach below, where at last Aria's Overture kicks off our grand performance. Sadly, some poor fisherman got crushed by the massive alien ship, but hey, at least he left behind this spiffy hat. The ship must have teleported here for a reason, so we get looking for any illithid cultists. Finding some brain cats that are significantly less friendly than our own, a pinned illithid that gets put down, and some opportunistic robbers who get a wee bit crushed before we run away, granting us enough experience to de-rust and remember our Bladesinger training, giving a whole bunch of proficiencies and allowing us to bladesing. We can do this twice per long rest, not requiring an action at all, giving us extra AC and move speed, advantage on acrobatics, and an increase to our con saves. Plus, we now have the ability to climax in combat, which ends our blade song dealing AoE damage to enemies and healing to allies for increasing amounts depending on what type of spells we've casted. Just down the road, we hear shouting and rush to see what's going on, only to find goblins attacking innocent tiefling refugees hiding out in a druid grove while shouting the name of the absolute. So of course, we jump into action, with Zevlor the tiefling leader giving everyone temp HP and us being able to blade sing and get a whack, and we're off to a good start. Shield keeps us nice and safe, and our allies are clearly intelligent too with their AoE positioning. First blood goes to our side, as does second and third blood too, but eventually the goblins get their due, even taking out one more ally afterwards before we're eventually able to courageously climax on the last enemy to finish the fight.
That was the last of them.
Granting entry into the grove, where we find out the druids don't much like the tieflings being here. We convince some of the more capable ones to stay regardless to defend their people, meet the temporary druid leader Kaga, who clearly isn't helping tensions, save a kid from being murdered by her snake, and learn the actual druid leader Halson has gone to the nearby absolutist camp to figure out what the deal is with these parasites. Ironically, we also find out we're completely horrible at playing instruments.
That was interesting.
We're of course going to help these tieflings get out of here safely, and when one of the kids asks us to steal the druid's idol as repayment for all their suffering, agreeing is the least we can do. Aria's always been quite the proponent for reparations after all. To make sure we're not making a mistake, we steal Kaga's chest and find she's clearly up to no good. First, however, we set out into the wilderness to get a lay of the land, immediately detecting a sulfuric devilish scent as Raphael appears. Sure enough, all our readings have not been wasted, as he is indeed a devil, and anyone who's even glanced at a book knows that he is not the savior he promises to be. So we tell him to zip us back into the woods that he whisked us away from, but we're sure that won't be the last we see of him. While we're up here, we grab a pendant that lets us cast guidance and continue on, stumbling across a poor hound whose master has been brutalized. He's clearly not willing to leave his side quite just yet, but we leave him our scent so he can find us, and Aria vows to find a book on how to take care of a dog in the meantime. Since it's pretty obvious from all the corpses that there's some goblins around, we use our disguise self spell to turn into a full-blooded drow, and the plan works great when we get ambushed a moment later, but they let us go because drow seem to basically be royalty to these absolutist followers. Well, in the village, we grab the Haste Helm by breaking open this chest, making us extra speedy in the first few rounds by granting momentum. Elsewhere around here, we find some poor deep gnome being tortured.
Stop this thing!
So we spook off these goblins easy peasy and remember just how different Aria's values are compared to her average kin. But of course we let our new friend Barkus Root continue on his own adventures. For our good deeds we become even better at magic, hitting level 3, granting with it second level spells and some of our most powerful ones in the process. Notably Shadow Blade, which is going to be our main weapon for this run, as it's a finesse weapon that deals 2d8 psychic damage by default but can get upcasted for even more. If that's not good enough, it also gives advantage on any enemies that are obscured. As we get exploring the rest of the town for resources, we stumble across a hidden door in the alchemist basement, leading us to grabbing a scroll to conjure a quasit. Plus we meet a magic mirror that quizzes us on some pretty trivial questions that opens up to another hidden room wherein we grab the bracers of defense, granting a +2 to our AC so long as we have neither armor nor shield equipped. From here we head westwards out of the village, using our disguise to disregard even more goblins and find their HQ just down the road, where right as we're about to enter, a malignant migraine blasts our brain as the Absolute itself shows us visions of its chosen ones and demands that we follow them. Thankfully, before our brain gets melted, a Sharan half-elf shows up with an artifact that seems capable of resisting its powers. She seems to think that we need her to stick around, but Aria has way too much intelligence to want to hang out with a proudly displayed Sharan. Still, as we head inside, we get thinking about how we'll take that off her hands. Our thoughts are quickly interrupted by Crusher here though,
Kiss my foot!
and a fight kicks off. Unfortunately for these guys, with mage armor, bracers of defense, blade song, and shield, they need to roll a 25 to hit us, which ain't happening anytime soon. And it takes a single hit for us to lay out their leader, who instantly begs for his life, before sauntering off outside of camp, isolating himself in the process. Well, except for the Sharan, but surely she won't complain if we kill an influential goblin. Okay, alright then. Not even the goblin himself bothered to fight back, but hey, that's one way for us to get the artifact. The assassination goes well too, granting us Crusher's Ring off of Crusher's corpse, increasing our move speed by a further 3 meters. Inside the camp proper, we talk to Roa Moonglow, who continues to deck us out as we also get the Bow of Awareness. We don't really care about the weapon, but the +1 to initiative it gives is very nice. Also inside the camp, we find and free the legendary author Volothap up G'darm for some reason, telling him to stay at our camp for as long as he'd like. Taking the opportunity to dig around, we lockpick our way into one of the 3 goblin leaders' rooms where we put our big old brain to work solving a puzzle, leading to an absolutely massive ladder going all the way down into the old familiar site of Aria's ancestral abode, the Underdark. When we arrive down here, we murk a minotaur, grab a very cool looking sword that sings to us, dodge a dastardly boulette that we cannot take on, and meet some psychic mushrooms that are very inappropriate. But at the very least, they welcome us into their grotto, where it seems we're not the only guests here. A poison deep gnome is very happy to see us, as Aria's book smarts let us give her the cure to her woes. Once we do, she tells us some Dwergar have her folk enslaved across the nearby lake, and she needs us to save them. The boots of speed she stole from them certainly help as an incentive, but Aria would have done it just to spite the sickening slavers anyways. Either way, getting to dash as a bonus action is phenomenal. As an extra bonus, the Myconid Sovereign wants them dead just as bad. Before we head over to do that, we meet a friendly mind flayer and fellow scholar named Omeluum, who thinks a nearby arcane tower has all we need to cure our tadpole. After a quick jaunt on over using our new boost of speed, we grab him and down the vile concoction like we're back at the old Bladesinger Academy, and find that like with any wizardly experiment, we've only empowered the eldritch horror sitting in our brain. Well, on the bright side, we're able to buy an amulet from Omeluum that lets us restore a low-level spell slot. Also at this point, Aria learns the scroll to summon the ever-lovely Quasit named Shovel, adding it to our spell list, but as a wizard, you can actually just get this for free if you talk to her after the initial dialogue. Down at the beach, our disguise tricks even the Dwergar too, making them think we're their ally, and when we show them the boots that we've got, they're more than happy to let us steal their boat and sail across to where the rest of them are. Surprisingly, we meet a Dwergar that we actually like. He has no interest in slavery, but would much rather just study the rocks and quizzes our knowledge on them too. Aria, of course, obliges, always happy to show off her studies with a fellow scholar, but as fun as it is to gab, we did come here to murder everyone he knows. Something that becomes a little bit easier when we meet Elder Brithvar, who isn't a fan of Nier, the drow leader of the Absolutists here. Brithvar wants us to free him from the rockfall he got stuck in, then gank him together. Which gets made even easier as all this planning has made our brain grow even larger as we hit level 4. We pick up a cantrip in the form of Mage Hand for some utility alongside a couple other spells to flesh out our list some more. But the real meat and potatoes of this level up is the mobile feat, increasing our move speed by another 3 meters, making it so when we dash difficult terrain doesn't slow us, and most importantly, making it so when we make a melee attack, whoever we attack can't opportunity attack us in return, making us extremely good at hit and run strats. To start off with our plan against Nier, we shove this scrying eye into the depths below with a strength potion, then use some bombs we picked up to blow open the cave-in where we can put down one of our folks who's gone astray.
Most curious.
As the fight kicks off, we realize Brithvar and his buddies aren't actually allies because we forgot to tell them we killed the eye, which is kinda silly, but it just means we need to be careful about AoE. On our turn, we get blade singing and stab whoever's closest before zipping super far away using our impressive move speed. That way we don't have to worry as arrows go flying, psychic explosions start bursting, people start shrinking themselves, and more of Brithvar's buddies barrel into battle. As things go on, 2 people on our side go down pretty fast, but things are still relatively even. Of course, it gets a little trickier when mind control is involved. However, Nier seems to be running in the completely wrong direction, so that certainly makes things easier. Aria, for her efforts, is just missing like crazy, although Shovel is more than making up for that, tilting the scales in our favor. The dust begins to settle as this momentum is all we need to wipe out all of Nier's ne'er-do-wells, leaving just him. His legendary action makes him immune to most damage though, and it doesn't stop Brithvar's men from slamming into him to take retaliation damage, so we make sure to only stab him when he's vulnerable, and try our best to stay away from the bozos attacking him anyways, not that it's particularly easy. Soon enough, our quick lead is gone as the last of our allies die to him, all according to plan. They were slavers after all. From there, we just stand in melee and trade attacks, hitting him way more often than he hits us thanks to shield. Before too long, he's gone for good and the slaves are free in one fell swoop, including our old pal Barkus Root, who seems to keep getting into trouble to the point where we tell him to go join Volo and Scratch at our camp. Elsewhere in the Grimforge, as it's known, we introduce some animated suits of armor to to Graviturgy, Aria's favorite school of magic. And we even stumble across the titular Grim itself, a massive construct that would be much scarier if whoever built it attached a fly spell to it. Since they didn't though, we just need to lure it to the center of this forge with our minor illusion, then smash it with the hammer over and over and over again. Now that the slaves are free, we decide to get looking into that sketchy note we found from Kago way back when, since the goblin camp still seems a little scary. Heading into the swamp, we immediately bump into Auntie Ethel, who's being accused of kidnapping these two fellows' sister, but swears that she didn't. This seems like a family affair, so Aria decides to leave it to them, only for the old lady to suddenly use magic to murder both of them right in front of us. Okay, maybe not Aria's most heroic moment. Now we've definitely gotta add saving their sister to our list of things to do. Either way, for now, we stay focused, heading in only to find the swamp is covered in an illusion, no doubt to hide the hag's lair. But illusion or not, we use an invis potion to sneak past the plentiful elementals and find proof that Kaga indeed seeks to betray her grove as a whole and give it to the shadow druids. You don't need to read half as many books of lore as Aria has to recognize those guys are no good. When we head back to confront the traitorous druid directly, we find the rats themselves are the aforementioned shadow druids and a confrontation begins. To start off, we use a melee attack on the two folks closest to prevent opportunity attacks and dip far away. The baddies are focused on the sole good druid in the room whose wolf companion dies immediately, and he ain't looking too hot either. As sad as it is, we use the opportunity to continue our hit and run strategy with the boots of speed, meaning we always have enough move speed. Our goat in the form of a raven dies a moment later, and everyone left in the room starts dashing after Aria. Oh, also Nettie is here.
Hi, how are you?
Using a lightning bolt scroll, we managed to chunk a good portion of our foes, only to follow it up with another thanks to a bloodlust elixir. Druids have a lot of HP to burn through with their wild shapes though, so while they are stuck dashing after us every turn and murdering Nettie, we're basically just playing Ring Around the Rosie, especially since they also love healing with their spell slots, but if they can't reach us, they can't hurt us, and for the few times we do stay in line of sight, we still have good AC and a blur that we cast before the fight. So even if it takes a while, we get picking them off, with the only damage we take being from Moonbeam, and soon enough all of them are dealt with. To make sure no one else gets any ideas now that less eyes are on the idol, we go ahead and yoink it, handing it to Maul as promised, who rewards us with the Ring of Protection. This bad boy gives +1 to both our AC and saving throws and will be with us for a while. Now that that's done, we move on to the goblin camp properly, finding a room with a captive bear in it that might just be the druid leader we were told about. Either way, it doesn't want to be captive for long, and a fight begins. Goblins at this point are easy pickings, and they're not even bothering to attack us, focusing solely on the bear, who does turn out to be Halson, and God knows why he was a bear when he could just do this, but I guess he likes it. Regardless, this fight is cleaned up just as quickly as it began. We learn about Moonrise Towers, the Absolutist HQ, from the Druid Man, and tell him to stay here while we clean up the rest of the camp. Though while we're in here, we do grab Wargfang to use in our offhand temporarily, giving goblins disadvantage on hitting us, making it really easy to clear out all the little groups of goblins loitering around. And since we destroyed their alarms beforehand, Priestess Gut here is none the wiser as we talk her into self-isolating in her chambers and use Shovel to get a surprise round on her. We definitely did not get crushed by a giant statue in an alternate timeline. What does happen is we use a cloud of daggers to start shredding away at her, since our regular attacks just cannot land at all. Unfortunately, it's not quite enough to kill her before she calls for help and more goblins start pouring into the fight. But she can't hit us either, so we're not too worried as we take her out on the following round and are left with some less than smart goblins, who also don't take too long to murk. The next goblin leader we go to take out is Minthara, who reminds Aria very much so of some estranged relatives. Sadly for her, trusting goblin architecture to keep you suspended over a bottomless pit is a losing game. And that's one less drow to perpetuate our people's foul legacy. Clearly, our studies are paying off, as with this we hit level 5, granting 3rd level spell slots for which we take Fireball and Blink for AoE damage, and because Blink can be a little silly when you've only got one character. Notably, our proficiency bonus and our Bladesong boost to AC and con saves all go up to +3 alongside getting another Bladesong charge. Plus, our cantrips get stronger too. The last goblin leader we've got to take out is Dror Ragslin, who Shovel helps get a surprise round against as we square up. Aria tests out her brand new Blink as we start off, throws a goblin into the spider pit below with a strength elixir, and gets blade singing as always. On the second round, we take out the first goblin, the spiders take out a second, and when Shovel gets obliterated, our whole screen goes black and white, and I start to realize Blink does not make for a good viewing experience. Our strategy for this fight is very similar to previous ones. We run up to the closest enemy, whack them to death real quick, then scuttle away, shutting any doors behind us, forcing any slower baddies to dash after us, which is all of the baddies. Rinse and repeat for a bit, and suddenly Dror himself is on our tail, though half the time he couldn't hit us even if we were next to him thanks to Blink. The odd critical hit helps out even more, but when we don't manage to blink away, he can still damage us with his reusable bonus action repulsor. However, it turns out our critical hits are more even than odd. Afterwards, we go tell the tieflings that neither the goblins nor our kin will be bothering them anymore, still drenched in their blood, mind you. And Halson shows up at our camp telling us that to get to Moonrise, we need to go to the Shadowcurse lands, and he is coming with us. Before that though, now that the way is open, we decide to explore the mountain pass since we've heard Githyanki are about, and if anyone has answers about mind flayers, it's probably them. Along the way, we meet Lady Esther, who sells us the Periapt of Wound Closure and the Graceful Cloth. The Periapt is an amulet that maximizes any and all healing we receive, which works wonderfully when we climax. And the Graceful Cloth gives us a permanent enhanced ability for dexterity, +1 to our dex saves and better jump distance, plus most importantly, increases our dex score by 2 up to 19. Continuing on, it turns out the Gith are one step ahead of where we thought they'd be, already gathering evidence directly from absolute cultists. To get inside their crash, we head through the back door, making sure to invis past their guards, then just kinda act like we belong, talking to a Jacques Nirjira who is less than happy to do business with Aria, but is more than happy to get our cash as we buy the Knife of the Undermountain King from her to use as an offhand, letting us reroll low damage rolls and expand our crit range, as well as just being a strong tool to whack folks with since it's a +2 weapon. Now that we're here and we see how heavily armed this place is though, it's clear we've gotta power up a bit more just in case their leader isn't the biggest fan of us. Starting by exploring the rest of the temple the crash is located in, testing our might on a whole bunch of kobolds that are filled with wine. The hit and run strats still work wonderfully even on large groups of enemies, but we are more than just a hit and run specialist. After all, Aria is a wizard, and what wizard can't cast Fireball? Also, for what it's worth, she has been trying to finish fights with climaxes, but it just does absolutely dog water damage unless you cast a bunch of spells. As much as casting spells like fireballs helps in big groups of enemies, for when we fight folks like Gromishka who tend to turn into panthers when you cast spells, our wizardly warrior is more than capable of standing still and stabbing them to death without such tricks. In one of the rooms in the temple, we find what looks to be a religious puzzle of some sort, that we keep in mind for later. And further up, some giant eagles that we get a surprise round on since they have a ceremonial weapon that looks perfect for said room. With a few good stabs both from Aria and Shovel, we're able to take out the largest eagle instantly, with the second one going down right afterwards. Of course, as we explore and find good scrolls, we've been expanding our spell list the whole while. After clearing out most of the temple, we take another quick detour to get the Dwergar on the beach since we didn't blast them earlier. Naturally, we take the opportunity to torture the evil buggers first by subjecting them to the horror that is a marathon, then we obliterate them. Once they're out of the way, we decide it's about time we go free Mayrina, the sister of those two poor fellows from the swamp earlier, finding Ethel's less than pleasant minions standing outside.
Nosy, scum-sucking, lice-ridden little ball bag.
Both for their rude manners and for the whole helping a hag thing, we get the jump on them, doing our best to take out the blood sages first, since if we're unlucky, they can hold person us. Thankfully, the surviving one just buffs their buddy, and we're able to take him out on the next turn, giving the melee redcaps the old kiting treatment. When we make it to Ethel's hut, we find the tear-stricken and pregnant Mayrina in obvious danger, but before we can do anything, the owner of the house poofs her away and turns into her repugnant true form. Well, a fight technically does start here. She also instantly sees how powerful we are and retreats deeper into her home. We get following after her, finding some mind-controlled victims that we very quickly put out of their misery, with each of them going down in about one hit now that I've remembered to upcast Shadowblade. Following that, we descend into the depths, skipping all of her traps as any wizard should. Then we turn invisible, free Mayrina from the giant suspended cage she's stuck in, and quickly run the math through our Gigabrain to figure out where the invisible Ethel likely is.
Violence hasn't gone unnoticed.
Once our violence is sufficiently noticed, the fight begins properly, with us immediately running inside her chambers and shutting the door. On her turn, Ethel summons a buttload of clones and teleports herself at the same time, trying to mix us up. However, Aria's vast intellect means we can just ping her to find which one is the real one. Since she's so far away, we just shoot whoever's closest and end our turn. Because Ethel can't actually fit into her room when she's in her true form, we've got nothing to worry about. Now that she's close enough, we go on to pepper the real one over the course of quite a few rounds till eventually she dips under 30 HP, at which point she starts begging for her life,
Wait just a tick.
offering to give us a +1 to any stat in exchange for letting her leave with Mayrina. Now, Aria is no fool, so we're certainly not going to decline power, but we're not letting her leave with the girl either. We do still have to let the hag leave, but she'd regenerate anyways, so at least we get this clump of hair, boosting our dexterity up to a whopping 20, all without using a single ability improvement. Mayrina is clearly still emotionally distraught, and as much as we'd love to help with that, our hero is not equipped for this kind of challenge. Now that our debt to her brothers is fulfilled, we get practicing a bit more, taking out a whole bunch of gnolls we found laying about on the North Road, obliterating a false god and all of his fishfolk followers hidden in the Underdark, and befriending some ogres with the magic of hard cash. All of this is enough to take us up to level 6, granting more spell slots as always, alongside a couple more handy dandy spells, and most notably, we get extra attack, which does exactly what it says on the tin, almost doubling our damage output. Feeling as prepared as we'll ever be, we head back to the Rosimorn Monastery and put all the various ceremonial weapons we grabbed earlier on their appropriate pedestals, granting Morning Lord's Radiance, a buff that lasts till long rest, granting a d4 radiant damage to all of our weapon attacks. We also tell the Myconid Sovereign that we took out all the Dwergar for him a while back, and he gives us a sick new nickname. And more importantly, Bliss Force 2, granting a d6 bonus to all of our rolls also till our next rest. With all these buffs, we feel more than ready to confront the strongest Gith we can find in the hopes they can answer questions, and with the parasitic voice in our head that we've been ignoring telling us to do otherwise, we feel like we're on the right path. When the artifact they're interested in refuses to actually stay with them, the Kithrak here gives us access to the innermost chamber, wherein lies Charaib Wargaz, a very powerful Gith soldier and a direct servant of her, the false god Lich Queen Vlaakith, leader of all the Gith, who tells us that there's someone inside this astral prism working to bring back the Illithid Empire, and she needs us to kill them on her behalf. Our hero is way too smart to risk making a god, even a false one, angry, so in we go. Meeting the lady of our dreams, who still continues to be deeply untrustworthy in even something as basic as her greetings. She claims that she knows a secret that could undo the Gith Empire, and somehow this same secret gives her the power to protect us from being turned into a mind flayer. Of course, she can't actually tell us what it is though, that would make us trust her or something. Still, we can't really kill her since she is protecting us, we would instantly turn into a mind flayer, so we get preparing Summoning Shovel, downing a Bloodlust Elixir, using a false life scroll, drinking a flying potion, coating our weapon with crawler mucus, and casting Blur on ourselves. That's not all. The moment we step out, we down a speed potion and use Shovel to surprise everyone except the boss man. On our turn, we Blade Song as always before eradicating one of the Ardents, triggering Wargaz's legendary action, but we can just ignore those. Then we zip on over to the next Ardent, taking this one out with 2 more attacks. And we have Shovel trigger the head honcho's reaction so we can attack him without having to worry about getting parried. He, in return, does pretty much nothing except for trigger Booming Blade, and Wargaz is conjured countered with weapons keep missing us too. Next turn, we land a couple more brutal blows on him, followed by casting Blink as Aria always strives for perfection, and to that end, we also go to fly to the corner while we refresh our speed pod. Exactly according to plan, everyone spends their turns dashing after us, and we're able to fly back to our target, taking him out in 2 more hits. Flying down to his crossbow man, our first attack finally triggers Crawler Mucus, letting our offhand attack get a guaranteed crit for the kill. The sole remaining thug spends his turn leaping on after Aria, which means we don't have to go anywhere as we finish this fight absolutely flawlessly, not a single point of damage taken. Upon looting them, we get a couple of Gith goodies to go, namely the Diadem of Arcane Synergy and the Strange Conduit Ring. The Diadem grants us Arcane Synergy for 2 turns whenever we inflict a condition like our Booming Blade does, essentially meaning we'll always have our intelligence added to our damage. While the Strange Conduit Ring gives us another d4 of psychic damage while we're concentrating on spells. Worth noting, our ring slots are pretty full and it takes Aria a while to settle on what jewelry we end up rocking, but for the most part we settle on the Ring of Protection alongside this one. And with all that done, we may not have gained as much information as we'd like, but our hero has righted some wrongs. Plus, as she inches closer to the Shadow Curse lands, she also inches closer to perfection, both in terms of how the world should be and her own skills with sword and spell alike. Moonrise is simply the next stepping stone. Thank you all so very much for watching. This is the start of the final run for the Monoclass Challenge series, but fret not, once this is done, there's still plenty more Baldur's Gate 3 content on the way. Regardless, I hope you enjoy. And as always, a special thanks to our Storyteller tier members, Ocan, Mark Rainbow, That Be Renee, El Guardia, Ramon Standalone, Zaplight25, Witch Amy, Shmentai Neko, Miku, Achilles the Spartan, Audi Kashi, and Arion YT.